Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Spyderco Civilian, a very not new Spyderco knife that for some reason I have never looked at on this channel. Once you see this freaking plague doctor looking braces needing knife, you will never forget it. This is so weird. This is a we don't normally on this channel. I haven't looked at a lot of the Seki City Japan Spyderco knives, but yeah, this is a wild one. I've always wanted to take a look at it, and thanks to River's Edge Cutlery, who supplied this knife for review, I can share it with you guys today and share my thoughts on it. I'm not going to keep this. The idea here was that I gave it away when I was done, so I'm going to do that. I carried this knife, and it was a weird experience. I'm going to share my experience with you guys in the form of a review, like I usually do. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. So the story behind this, you can read about this on Spyderco's website, because I'll probably, I'm just going to go over it barely here. The story goes that Spyderco was approached, I think it was a long time ago, they were approached by some secret section of the military asking if they could design something for their undercover agents that were posing as regular civilians. And these undercover agents didn't really have any self-defense training, and the situations that they found themselves in, they were kind of vague about this, but the situations they found themselves in didn't allow them to carry firearms. So they carried a knife, and they needed the knife to be, the knife to do most of the work in a life or death situation to, escape, I guess. And holy moly, I almost feel like Spyderco over-delivered, and they were, the military was like, oh my God, what is this? This is a terrifying looking knife. I mean, really, there is something really unsettling about the profile, because it looks like a demon bird skull. Like that's really what I get. Like the eye and the teeth and this awful, this terrible hook. It's terrible. I have no doubt in my mind, as somebody who is absolutely not an expert on self-defense, right? This knife, which was designed for people who have no idea what they're doing, right? I bet this drives like the self-proclaimed self-defense experts in the comment section. I bet this knife drives them crazy, because the irony is they desperately want to apply their lengthy expertise to an object that was designed to be used by someone who has no expertise. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to read what people say about that. But yeah, this really is terrifying. I have no doubt in my mind, my very, in terms of self-defense, my very uneducated mind, I have no doubt in my mind that this would really damage somebody, right? In the hands of essentially anyone, right? Absolutely terrifying. Let's go ahead before we get into my experience carrying it. I even left it tip down, right? I figured, why not? Let's go for the whole experience here. Let's go tip down. It's not a flipper, right? And it's got a back lock on it, so there's not really a risk of it opening my pocket. I know that's going to confuse some people. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and measure this thing. Overall length of this wicked, nasty boy is 9. I'm going to measure it at 9 1/8. Blade length is actually 4 1/16, and your cutting edge, it's curved, right? We're going to go straight from tip to the last tooth here, 3.65 inches of cutting edge. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So we can see 8010, which is a pretty big knife. I feel like this is going to put it into perspective for a lot of people. This is big, right? Even at 75% the size, most people seeing this for the first time, knife people or non-knife people, are going to go, ugh. It's just it looks like it's cursed. It looks like there's some natural evil energy associated with it, right? That's every time I open this blade, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. Let's put it up against the Demco 80 20.5. How about up against, let's do some other Spyderco knives, up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Look how docile and just happy these other Spyderco. I mean, it honestly looks like the other two Spydercos are smiling nervously with this horrible thing in between them. But they just look so, all of a sudden, they look so normal. They look so knife-like and not weird, right? I mean, this is, if you thought the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 looked weird, look at this freaking thing, man. This it's just gross. Finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. There it is. Couldn't find it there for a second. All right. So how's the action on this guy? So this is a backlock Spyderco, and it's actually, as far as I know, it's running on washers. But the action, it's actually pretty smooth, right? Pretty straightforward. If you're gonna manipulate this knife with one hand, it's very similar. It's similar to a lot of backlock knives, but I like some of the bigger ones because the way that I stretch my hand out to make this work safely, just because I have to. I don't know why. I cannot stand to do this, which is the safe way, right? I don't know why I'm so against that. I just have to know that I can manipulate it with one hand, right? Because I'm a seasoned knife fidget veteran. Which is not, that's just, I'm not priding myself. I'm openly inviting you to make fun of me. But if you're like me and you have to manipulate it with one hand, you need to depress here, extend your index finger so that the unsharpened portion of the bottom of the blade catches your index finger, and then you can turn it and snap it closed with one finger. This is smooth, but it's obviously not going to be bearing operation. It's also much more likely, in my opinion, that knives like this locking system, that you bring that blade down on your finger. And because after a certain point it snaps, I mean, God, look at the jaws of this thing. This is nightmare fuel. Look at this. It's a nightmare. Oh my God. Evil bird alligator. Having my finger in here, I will almost certainly send you to the hospital. Even the lightest clamp, right? I also am it's very unsettling to see the teeth poking over. This is such a, I swear that this is a living thing. Like, that's, every inch of my being is like, that's alive, and it will attack you the moment you go to sleep. I can't help myself from thinking that, right? And every time I got it out, I know it's an inanimate object, but there's something distinctly lifelike about this knife, and I cannot be the only person who feels that way, right? But anyways, if you're just finding my channel for the first time, I'm sure that this is a weird video. I'm sure that it is. I'm just trying to share my thoughts, right? Just like I always do. But yeah, watch your fingers is what I'm saying. Let's go ahead and do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. So it's actually not super duper thick. You can see there's a little thinner. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. You're going to be aware of this thing for sure in your pocket. I mean, it definitely carries larger. Even being thinner, it definitely carries larger than the PM2 or Para 3. I did appreciate that it was slightly thinner, but yeah. It has a liner on only one side, which is something to take note of here. You have a liner right here, and then you have nothing. And then you have the back spring or the back lock or whatever. And that's what you're looking at there for the handle materials. It's just plain peel ply textured G10, and then your liner, your single liner, and then the steel back spring. I don't know why I had to repeat that. And then you have a VG10 blade, which we're going to measure the blade stock thickness of real quick here. I'm going to guess that that's probably about 125 to 135 thousandths, maybe up to 140. I doubt it. Probably closer to 125. And no, it's actually even thinner, 114 thousandths there. Let's weigh it. It's probably still going to end up weighing at the lightest, high 4s, probably 5 or more. Oh no, high 4s. Okay, 4.7 ounces. Not terrible ratios. It's not incredibly heavy. The balance on it is going to be actually pretty. That surprises me. I really thought the blade would be heavier. It's about right here, right? This knife throws all my senses off. I have a hard time thinking about the balance of the knife while I'm holding it because I'm so distracted by how abysmal the blade looks and how much the feeling of hopelessness is bearing down on my shoulders. It's just, this is such an awful looking knife. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I'm pretty sure that pivot is going to end up being a T10. Yeah. And then these body screws are all going to be T6. And then you have the Chicago ends over here. It shouldn't be horribly difficult to take this knife apart as long as you have the right tools for the job. Should be okay. Going to be working, I believe, if it's like the other, I'm not actually going to take it apart, but if it's like these, you got to work around the lanyard bar, or not lanyard bar, the lanyard barrel, which can sometimes be a pain, but not impossible. Either way, the disassembly process, if you really have to take it apart, which most of the time a knife like this, right? I know some people really want to see the inside of it. Most of the time a knife like this, all you're going to be doing is periodically adjusting the pivot, and then re-Loctiting it, right? Or periodically adjusting your body screws. It's very unlikely that you will ever need to take a knife like this apart. Most of the time you can blow it out with compressed air. So, anyways, is that it? Have we done everything? Let's move on to the meat and potatoes here. Plenty of ergonomic room, right? Now, I carried this thing tipped down because of tactical, right? It's a very tactical knife. A lot of people get upset with me when I review knives. It even says on Spyderco's website, this knife was absolutely not designed for, typical carry use. It was not designed for that. It was designed as a means of, getting somebody the F off of you so that you can get the heck out of there, right? So you can Batman flip off the back of a building and whatever, right? And people get upset with me because periodically I review knives that are they're legitimately designed as combat or self-defense knives, and I review them from the perspective of a regular, not special Joe, right? And this makes some people really, really upset. And then I remind them that regardless of what they were designed for, they are being intentionally sold to regular people who have no business using them in any setting that's even remotely related to where they were designed to be used or how they were designed to be. It's like if they really intended for these knives to only be used by people in specialized scenarios, they would be making a lot less of them, right? Not enough for everyone to have them, right? So the vast majority of people, regardless of your specialized combat or self-defense background, the vast majority of people will simply use these as regular cutting tools because the likeliness that you have to defend yourself against an adversary, right? The likeliness that you find yourself in a secret government program where you're undercover disguised as a civilian who cannot carry a firearm and does not have self-defense training, but has this, the likeliness of that is very small, right? You are more than likely Jeff Smith and you're shopping on Blade HQ and this looks crazy and weird and you're like, I had $261 burning a hole in my pocket and I fancy myself somewhat of a loose cannon. Maybe I get into a scuffle here and there. Maybe this would be the right thing for me. That's more than likely who you are, right? And then the reality of it is you buy it and it comes in and you look at it and you flip it out and you show it to your knife buddies and you do a little bit of pretend. You get in the mirror and you're like, you're like, you want my wallet, huh? Well, how about this? Give us some of that. You do that in the mirror for a little bit and then you throw it in your pocket and periodically you get it out to open your packages that contain more knives. And that's pretty much it, right? Probably not going to be using it to defend yourself. Maybe, right? Are there people on Earth who have had to use this knife to defend themselves? Probably not very many, right? In the grand scheme of things. And this always bothers people. But that is just factually true. It's just math, right? I know that to be factually the case, that the vast majority, I'm talking 99.9999999% of people who have bought this knife have used it for, or have tried to use it for regular tasks, and are almost exclusively using it for regular tasks and not self-defense related stuff, right? Now, I carried it for a few days and did not find an opportunity to use it in a self-defense situation. I was not attacked by zombie clowns or robot ninja terrorists. I wasn't attacked by anything. Bears. It was pretty calm 3-day period. I did happen across some mail, which I attempted to open with this knife, and wow, that was hard. They weren't kidding. This is not designed to do that. You can make it work, right? I mean, it's just like, it's a recurve, demon's beak, serrated, like, it's just awful. The most hellish blade, right? If you can just exclusively use this this is the longest continuous edge. If you can just use this tiny reaper sickle, just there, right? It is chisel ground, as serrations usually are. So if you could just use that, right? But I had a hard time. I thought, like, I'm going to hook that in there and just drag, and it'll be no problem. No, it does not like cardboard. It gets hung up on everything. This is just the reality of it. If you buy this knife, and a lot of people look at this and they think that's super cool. I just really like it. Like, it looks super evil. It scares the crap out of Metal Complex. That right there makes me want to buy it, right? I want to strike fear into the hearts of my enemies. Okay, fine. The fact of the matter is that you are very unlikely to ever use it the way it was supposed to be used. You will put it in your pocket, and it's not a terribly difficult knife to carry, but it's large. It'll take up a lot of room in your pocket. And when it comes time to use it for something in a pin, you're like, I got mail to open. I got to use this, right? You're going to use it, and it's going to slow you down. And eventually it's going to wear on you, and it's probably going to bother you, and you'll switch it out for something else. A lot of people say, that's why I carry 2 knives. I carry my self-defense knife, and then I carry my EDC knife. Okay, you can totally do that. You're just carrying a lot of stuff for a situation that is unlikely to occur. I do agree that it's better to be prepared. It's better to have the thing on you and never need it than need it and not have it. I completely agree with that, right? But I'm just pointing out factual information here, is that at some point, this is what you're going to have. You're going to need a tool, and you are equipped with a weapon that is exclusively a weapon, and this weapon will be a frustrating thing to use as a tool, right? So it's just that's the factor there. So what's the deal with a pocket clip? Well, I always poke fun at this, is that the position of tip down is typically reserved for the tactical crowd. There's no shortage of people who are super into self-defense, who will tell you that tip down is the optimal way to carry a knife for self-defense stuff, right? If you're attacked by very spry, zombie clowns, like acrobatic zombie clowns maybe they had a circus career for a long time before they died, and then were reanimated by some wizard. I don't know. I'm just, whatever you're being attacked by, right? Tip down, for some reason, is considered the optimal position for tactical stuff. Something about the blade being in the exactly the right position when you pull the knife from your pants. I've always argued that I disagree with this because of the shift that I have to do, right? Either way, this is a pretty slow object. The fastest knife is always a fixed blade. There's a different version of this knife that looks very similar. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the same thing with like a wave feature, and that one's like super tactical. There's no, even if you're like taking on the Olympic athlete level space ninja zombie clown, right? there's no way he's going to be that fast. But anyways, I carried it tip down because I feel like that was just how it's intended to be carried. And as expected, it is ergonomically not incredibly comfortable. It's also confusing to me because I typically carry my knives tip up. This is set up for tip down or tip up right hand only carry, which is stupid because the locking system is ambidextrous. It's in the middle of the spine. Why would they not include, Spyderco of all companies, who's known for knives that have tip up, tip down, right, or left-handed carry options. All of my Spydercos are modified, so I can't show this example, but that's typically the case, right? So super weird. Did they make a left-handed version of this? I don't know. The pocket clip is insane. It's way too long. It's also like that peel ply texturing is pretty aggressive. So this is definitely going to fray your pants up over time for sure. The reason that I come down on tip down carry is fine. Like your preferences are fine. Like if you just like it, right? You're not like trying to sell me some sort of tactical advantage that you have, right? You're like, I'm not trying to do that complex. That's just the way I like to carry my knives. Fine. If it doesn't have a flipper tab, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, right? If it has a flipper tab and it's working on like a regular like detent ball with a liner lock or a frame lock, right? Just paint the picture here. You are a right-handed gentleman and you are carrying your flipper knife tip down. That means if you're not a silly person, you have it back up against the rear seam of the pocket, right? Which means that flipper tab, which is responsible for deploying the blade, is now jammed, imagine this as a flipper, up against that back seam of your pocket, which is right outside your hip, right? And here's the tip right here. So let's say, this is an unlikely scenario, let's say you bump into something and the flipper tab pushes the blade like this. Now the tip of the blade is pointed at your goodies, which is not a great situation. That's why I always say a flipper tab carrying tip down in a normal position is not a good idea. Up against the front seam of your pocket, in my opinion, is even worse. Some people would say that's why they carry their knives with the pocket clip inside the pocket and the knife outside the pocket. To those people, I would say that's stupid and that's the wrong way to carry your knife. But you paid for it, so you do you. I feel like I'm just making people angry at this point. So it's a big object. It's an aggressive, super hyper aggressive looking object. It is not optimized, obviously, for EDC or daily carry. It's also incredibly delicate at the tip. Using this knife, it's kind of a bee stinger of a knife. Using it once, you're pretty likely to break that. I feel like if you were really like fighting somebody off with this, bad guys, I feel like 80s movies would tell us that bad guys always wear jean jackets, sometimes more than one. This will get through it, but I bet you break the blade off in him. I feel like he's going back to the bad guy camp with, this much blade right through those jean jackets stuck in him. He's like, I don't know what happened to me. This guy had this crazy knife. Got through my thickest jean jackets. Oh, I feel like you're going to lose this. It's so thin. Oh my gosh. Absolutely wicked though. The pull and slash, it's going to do damage. I'm not making fun of the design or the purpose of the knife. I think it's incredibly purposeful and very specifically exactly what was asked for. I have no doubt in my mind that this will do more damage than the vast majority, if not all, other pocket knives on the market. I think this is wicked. This is a death machine. Anybody who picks this up, I sincerely hope you never, ever have to use it. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have no other choice and you have nothing else on your person, this is pretty optimized. I wouldn't want to mess with. I don't want to mess with anybody anyway, But if I'm like, I'm gonna get you, and they pull this out, I'd be like, well, never mind. Maybe I'll find somebody else to get, I wouldn't want to fight against this. If I had a baseball bat, like a comically oversized baseball bat, I still wouldn't take that fight on the off chance that this thing gets buried in my chest or whatever, right? drug across. I just don't want any part of this. Is VG10 the optimal steel for this blade shape? I have no idea. What do you mean? What's the optimal blade steel? This is stainless, right? I guess that's helpful because blood's pretty acidic. A lot of people I think are going to come down on this for the types of materials used and the simple construction. Considering where it's made, it's just going to seem really overpriced at $261. And I'd agree with you. But there's just a lot of other things to consider, right? Outside of like the choice of materials. Like, I'm not sure what the right blade steel is. VG10 will perform very similar to 154 CM. I feel like there's probably a bunch of different blade steels that they could have used. The serrations are going to stay sharp for a really long time regardless. I mean, like, you don't really need an incredibly high quality, super crazy, hard, high edge retention steel for a serration to do what it's supposed to do. So maybe VG10 is the right steel. Honestly, don't know. If you somehow manage to use this knife enough, like, God help you. If you're using this knife the way it's supposed to be used and you're using it so much that you have to resharpen it, oh my. You're going to have a lot to answer for at the pearly gates, for sure. But how do you resharpen it? You got to use those little rods, right? So that wouldn't be fun. Fit and finish on the knife. Yeah, the blade looks good. It's got fingerprints and stuff all over it. And I think it's centered. It's hard to tell. I mean, it's definitely centered. It's just chisel ground, right? And it's throwing me off because there's a line around one side. Everywhere else, yeah, like it's pretty good. I feel like the Seki City Japan knives are hit or miss. Some of them are fine and some of them are super wonky. The Chinese Spydercos are definitely the ones that have the worst quality control. Truthfully, the Seki City Japan and the US made, the Golden Colorado Spydercos seem to be right around the same kind of hit or miss department. The knives that have the best quality control are the ones that are made in Taichung, Taiwan through Spyderco. They are just superior when it comes to fit and finish. It's been that way for a long time. But this one appears to be just fine. Closed position, it's one of those like back spring kind of things. So there's not really, I'm not going to call it detent lash. Where this actually connects right here is a little bit wonky. That might be the only area that looks a little goofy, but not bad. The actual lockup is very solid. It's a very strong locking system. It's like I said, I don't think that there's any chance of the lock disengaging using this knife the way that it's supposed to be used. I think you're just much more likely to lose like 30% of the blade. But no blade play up, down, left, or right. There's no lock stick, no pivot lash in here, and a very snappy, absolutely terrifying snap into the closed position. I will be very happy to give this to somebody. I'm going to give it away during a live stream, which usually takes the live streams usually take place on Friday evenings at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, right? This will eventually show up in one of my live streams as a giveaway item. I did not enjoy carrying this. I did not enjoy using it. I certainly would not enjoy using it the way that it was intended to be used, but I respect the idea behind it. And I think it is probably very, very good at doing what it was supposed to do. And I am certain that it has been used that way before, and it probably did exactly what it was supposed to do. So that's pretty much it. Do I recommend this knife? Absolutely not. I don't think so. I don't think you need to pay $261 to get something like this that's so specific. Like if you're like, listen, I live in a rough neighborhood. It needs to be a folding knife and it needs to do as much damage as possible. I have $261 and absolutely nothing else to spend it on. Okay, then you buy this, right? Not a recommendable knife for the vast majority of people. If you just like how it looks and you're really big into like hyper evil looking things that may or may not have a soul attached to them, like this might have a human soul in it. I don't know. Sure, knock yourself out. Just be careful with it. I feel like this sends more people to the hospital on accident than on purpose. I guess that's true with most knives. But yeah, I don't know. This is a wild one. This is fun though. I like doing reviews like this. If this video got you really frustrated with me, don't waste your time, because I promise you, you'll be met with more sarcasm in the comments section. But if you're a regular sub and you enjoyed this video, this was for you. I hope you had a good time. I'll link this knife down in the description. You can pick it up if you want to. Thanks again to River's Edge Cutlery for supplying this knife. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.